Really happy to welcome to the program today the new principal at North Quincy High School. Keith Ford has stopped on by to tell us a little bit about himself and about his plans for North. So, Mr. Ford, really nice to meet you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. It's been, since September 2021 now that you've been on the job?
Yes, right away. So definitely excited about the opportunity. For me and my family, it's something that, as a kid, you never thought that, I'll be a principal, especially going in high school and just living that life for a little bit. But it's been a fun ride. North Quincy, really the city of Quincy have embraced me from the very beginning. So it's definitely, I'm excited to be a part of the Quincy community.
Well, I thought this would be a great opportunity to let you tell your story, to the folks of Quincy.
Sure.
How you came to where you are now.
Yeah, so I'm Keith Ford, obviously. I'm from New Haven, Connecticut originally. Really growing up for me, I'm one of those kids that struggled a little bit early on. I faced some challenges coming from school. I stayed back in first grade. And it was something that, for us as a family, I had opportunities to get back into my right grade, but we just didn't happen. And so for the longest time, for me, it really bothered me, right? That, being able to say that I'm the oldest one in the class, that type of deal. But there were so many lessons that I learned from that time period of just really having a better understanding of who I am as a person. Growing up from a single parent household, really it was just, again, met all the qualifications of someone that may have some struggles early on. Found a niche in sports was a way for me to kind of try to let loose a little bit more and have a better understanding of some of the things that I wanted to do. And there was a quote that really stuck with me that sports doesn't build character, it reveals it. And so for me, over the course of my time period, through my coaches, and realizing who I am as a person, as an individual, was something that really set the tone for me as I entered into high school. So I went from a kid that stayed back to getting straight A's, right?
Really?
Because again, it was finding that motivational factor. And there was people along the way in that journey that really tossed little nuggets of advice here and there, little pockets of wisdom that I was able to really consume. I didn't let my situation define who I was as an individual. Long story short, I ended up getting a scholarship to school. Went to University of Maine, went there for a year. And then end up transferring, eventually being at Northeastern, where I got my undergrad in business. So worked for a paint company right out of college, and really within my first year, I realized, this isn't for me, right? This business realm, and that usually happens in life. And I tell students all the time that we all have goals and aspirations and dreams, but as you know, life, you go through these ebbs and flows in life until you really find where you need to be. You always want to give your best effort in all that you do, though, right? And so I went because through coaching, I started coaching right away. And through coaching, I had an opportunity to work at a school in Boston, became a dean of students there right away. And then that's when I understood, okay, education is the path for me. So I went back to school, Emmanuel College, to get my master's degree. And then really my career catapulted from there. And I say all that, and not shy away from my story a little bit, because it's something that I live with and I talk to my students all the time with. I mention it to our staff. What life brings you is not if something happens in your life. It's not if, it's when. Right? When things happen, how do you handle it?
Yeah.
Right? And so, I go through the background of, again, a product of somebody that stayed back in the first grade, someone that went to multiple different colleges, someone that had trials and tribulations over their lifetime, that didn't have the typical path of being a principal than maybe some people have had. But it's how do you overcome those situations, right? And how do you go from there? So that's a little bit about my journey, a little bit like going through, again, the ebbs and flows. But once I found a niche of education was where I needed to be, really stuck with that and went on from there.
Well, it's interesting. If you had not been kept back in first grade, do you think you would have gone down that same path? That could have been the best thing that
It
ever
could have
happened to
been,
you.
like growing up, I wanted to go to the league. I did everything I possibly could to try to go to the NFL, and that was the goal for me. And I've had opportunities to pursue that dream of mine. So that was the mindset. That was my motivation at first. And then again, like you said, life happens. And it was every place that I've worked at, that I've been, I was able to grab a little something that helped propel me to be the person I am today. So me staying back in first grade and knowing the reasons why I stayed back overall really helped shape me as an individual and to have a better understanding of how to you capture your own dreams and desires on your own.
Yeah.
That nobody's going to do it for you, right? That
Yeah.
you don't get a free ticket, so to speak, right? And so, those are the things. As a child, yes, those trials and tribulations, they hurt, right? It's tough, in that moment. But what is the assignment for me was made clear. And I had a better understanding of why I went through the things I went through, and I'm appreciative now of that.
Yeah, and how does that kind of shape who you are as a principal now at North Quincy High School? How does that inform how you lead the school?
Yeah, I think so. Our biggest thing is that we want to uniquely embrace everyone, right? And that we want to create a welcoming, safe, and respectful environment.
In
for
fact, you
all.
say that's the theme of your administration
Correct.
in your welcome letter.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because of the fact that you never know, from a student perspective, you never know the impact as an adult, right? You may have on someone else, right? And their situation at the current moment should not define who they are overall as people, right? And so, we've all had situations that have really bring us to like a crossroad in our lives and decisions that need to be made. Like I've had people alongside me in environments that I lived at that may not have been as successful as I have been over time because of decisions that were being made along the way. And so a lot of it is your decision making. And right now, like our goal is to provide our students the best possible, opportunities for them to maximize their learning potential overall. And so again, because you don't know all that happens when a student sits in front of you, right? Being kind to everyone goes a long way, right? Being able to show your support and also have high expectations, right? That's a good balance to have overall. Like, how do you, ensure that you're instilling the love, that's necessary for a student to succeed, and then also at the same time set that high bar, right? And that we're not letting anybody slide through, so to speak, right? And so that's a balance, right? That us as teachers, as administrators, as adults, we're the ones that need to fine tune that, right? And so I think for me, like, I have a heart for the underdog. For those that, on paper wouldn't look like, okay, they may not be successful. They may not get the most likely to succeed award their senior year,
All right.
that type of deal.
Yep.
But being able to, again, motivate and encourage and hopefully provide strength and comfort to those individuals really goes a long way.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm about.
What's your kind of, it's only been a short while so far, but what's kind of your overall impression of North Quincy High School in terms of where the students are academically, socially, community-wise? What's your overall feeling about the school so far?
Well, I would say as far as there's a mantra, and I remember walking into the building, you can see it right there in the main lobby. It talks about pride and excellence. I think that is a staple of North Quincy High School. You see a lot of pride that goes into it. I've met a lot of folks community members, folks, former students there, former faculty that still are engaged with Raider Nation, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that it's unique to see, especially I've worked in different places across the Commonwealth, and it's something that's very unique to North, the pride that's there,
Really?
right? So that's a great thing, right? And as far as from an excellence standpoint, from an academic standpoint, the rigor is there for our students, the expectations are there for our students, and overall we do perform well, right? When the lights are on, we're able to perform at a high level, right? And so that stuff we want to continue to maintain that as we move forward. Our biggest push is make sure we continue to be inclusive of all.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
and that we want every person, every stakeholder that's a part of the North Quincy community, that they will feel the same way, right? And so how do you ensure that, right? And that's something that we're going to continue to model that. We're going to continue to hear from our students, hear from our staff, hear from our community, and figure out ways to continue to embrace that overall. And then provide opportunities for the community to really see what's been going well. There's a lot of things that we've been doing well in our school, and really how do you promote that,
Okay.
right? And so we're trying to find ways, whether through social media, obviously spending time right now,
Sure.
to really promote the great things that are going on at North Quincy High School. So, we're in the right track, we're on the right path. To continue to grow and close that achievement gap, and making sure that everyone that's involved, again, feel respected, safe, and know that they add value.
Do you think that's the biggest challenge, Mr. Ford, is making sure everybody is heard, their voices are heard, or what do you think is the biggest challenge?
I would say, in some ways, yes. Like that reassurance of there's some that really just come in and I'm gonna just put my head down and do what I need to do, and kind of move forward, right? And so their opinions do matter, right? And kind of establish, like, how do you go about offering your opinion, and is that in alignment with what we're trying to do as a school community as a whole?
Okay.
So my job as the building leader is making sure that the overall vision of where we want to be as a school is clearly defined, right? And so that folks understand, okay, here's what we're trying to do as a school, right? And so once that is established, then the overarching umbrella we'll go ahead and figure out, okay, where are areas in all that we do that kind of supersedes and gets to the point of really achieving the goals that we have in place.
So how will you accomplish that? Are you talking student assemblies or smaller gatherings?
Student, yeah, that's one way.
Okay.
I mean, there's multiple different ways to be able to do that. The main thing is a team approach first and foremost, right? And so, I'm working closely with our department chairs, overall, and making sure that we're fully aligned as an instructional learning team. And I'm also working, we have a group called a Culture and Climate Committee.
Okay.
So that's our staff really looking at our overall culture of the building and working with other staff to really, again, get to the point that that we're supporting them in their endeavors. We have a group called Making Positive Change that really is student-led and student focused when it comes to diversity and equity.
Okay.
Really working closely with our guidance and student support teams, and really thinking about our well-being of our students, our mental health of our students overall. So there's a number of different, we have tons of clubs that are around. We want to survey the kids to have a sense from them how they feel currently, and what direction we need to go in overall. So it's multiple different voices, having parents involved as well is also key to where we need to be.
Yeah.
So really just try to continue to provide avenues for voices to be heard. But I think making sure that the direction, once it's defined, that it's clear where we need to go, is the next step for us at this point.
We've had a lot of discussion about how the pandemic has impacted particularly young people. There have been reports of some students acting out, some public safety concerns, some societal concerns. Are you concerned about that at North?
Yeah, I think it's really everywhere.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to, that's not if but when,
Yeah.
right? So now we're in a phase of, okay, so how do we handle what transpired when you talk about the pandemic overall? And so, from we can either be reactionary, so when things happen, like, okay, how do we react, or be proactive, right? And so we're constantly trying to be proactive, finding ways for students, besides just the monotony of what school is all about on a daily basis,
Yeah.
what are things that we can do to kind of, switch things up for a minute, right? And find ways to allow students to express themselves creatively, right? And provide, obviously, under guidance of providing students opportunities to get involved in multiple different ways to just really continue to strengthen them and support them as they endure. But one thing we won't do is just kind of sit by and just say, make excuses of why we're not performing at a high level.
Okay.
I think that part still needs to be clear, right? That in spite of all that has taken place, we want to continue to really push, from an academic standpoint, that we maximize each student's full potential as a learner.
So keep the bar high, right?
Right.
Okay.
We want to keep the bar high, right? We want to, again, how do you provide certain avenues? How do you structure your day in a way that would allow students to succeed, but succeed nonetheless, right? And so just making sure that, the expectations are clear, right? And that, and really students should have a voice in those expectations, right? I think that part is important.
Okay.
And so, little things, right? You can have something, for instance, you can either, somebody can come up with expectations of, no cell phones in my class,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And we can battle that, like back and forth.
Because immediately
put
they're
it
thinking, how do I get around this rule,
exactly,
right?
Exactly, right? Or having conversations with our students, and okay, here's the goal or here's what we need to get done.
Okay.
Okay, what are some of the distractions that will prevent us from getting there?
Critical
And
thinking.
really,
Encouraging some
right?
critical thinking.
How do we come up with the necessary plans of when or how to use a cell phone?
So put it in their hands.
Right, exactly.
Figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Knowing what needs to be done. And it might be, depending on the area, it might be times where, okay, cell phones aren't allowed at all, right? And there might be other times where, okay, there might be a particular project assignment where is actually of great use to have a cell phone at a time, right?
Okay.
And so, being able to have that balance enough really starts with the relationship building that we need to have in order to have those type of conversations.
Yeah, you need to show these kids that you have their best interests at heart
Correct.
in the end, right?
Right.
And empower them to
Right.
achieve those goals.
Yeah.
That probably comes directly from your experiences.
Yeah, it's you have some folks that are rule followers, right? So, you just give me a rule, I'm gonna follow that rule and kind of go all the way, right?
Then there's you break the rules.
Like there was a time period where, I think for me, and maybe many students, but I can only speak for myself, it wasn't necessarily that, I intentionally broke rules because I wanted to break the rules.
Right.
It was based on the parameters that were given to me at that initial moment. Really trying to figure out myself.
Yeah.
I'm trying to discover me, right? And I was trying to, I'm being told how I should be.
Yep.
Right? And I'm seeing how others are. And I just needed that space to kind of figure out me. Right. And so, that, and again, the patience of being able to do that, right? For some, it may take a little bit longer than others. And, again, with the right motivation in place, with the right, ways to engage with folks that really took the time to get to know me as an individual, the best of me was able to come out.
So providing a space for that to happen.
Correct.
And you're dealing with students in all different developmental stages in life too, in high school, from the younger freshmen all the way to the seniors. They're in different stages in their lives. They need to adapt to where they are.
Right.
Right. The school system is looking to hire its first ever diversity, equity, and inclusion director. Do you think that's an important role for the schools?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's important, and I think the learning for really all of us at this point is important. And I'm hopeful that the community as a whole is ready for really some of those difficult conversations that really need to be had at this point. I think that there's some folks, and the reason why I opened with some of, I guess you could say, the things that would necessarily be on the things that we want to talk about right away, right? I opened up with some of the struggles that I've had over time, right? To kind of demonstrate that, I'm a regular Joe Schmo too, right? This is a situation where, I've been through some things as well, right? And for some, being vulnerable or transparent, is a tough place to be in, right? And so they rather cover that, they rather hide that, right? And I think there's the role of the DEI person coming in will help in some ways for all of us to kind of have a better understanding of who we are, as individuals, to hopefully help enforce, how we teach, right? How do we, from an administrative, how do we lead, overall? In many ways, folks try to separate the two. Well, I'm just here to teach a curriculum. I'm not going to get into my personal life. I hear that, right? And at the same time, because of the time and the energy and the amount of, from an emotional standpoint that comes into play in teaching, right? Like there's a part of you that's coming out. Your personal life seems to kind of seep through a little bit more than you may think, right? And so, being able to be a lifelong learner, be able to, check where all of us, we all have certain biases that we bring to the table to come in, and acknowledging that and figuring out, okay, how can I better know myself and my practice and know my students better? I think that is the realm that hopefully, this person that's coming in will help shape that a little bit, right? To be able to, hold the mirror up a little bit for us to kind of see where are the areas, the blind spots that we may have in ourselves for whatever reason, and kind of move on from there. I would say that's not a one-person job, right? I think it's going to need a team for that as well. But to have a leader to start that process will be important.
Curious what your family thought, when your path took a different role when you went to the education role as opposed to the NFL or sports
role. My family is extremely proud. My mom and dad, they're extremely proud of me at this point. I've been married 16 years, so my wife has been the backbone in our marriage. We have 3 kids, 11, one about to be 9, and 5 at home. And so it's one of those things where I really can't go without saying, our faith plays a huge role in our lives at this point. And so really trusting in God, through this whole process that, He's going to do a good work in me, and carry it out to completion. I think that part, is important, right? And so, there's a lot of things that I live by now that, from the word that it said, it declares it, and it's coming to fruition, at this point. So just thankful, very humbled, on this. I think this is, for me, it's, I'm hopeful that the way I lead, this community is through love and showing some grace and compassion and really, as we continue to ascend, being humbled by it.
What would you like your students to know about you that they might be surprised about, Mr. Ford? And what would you want them to remember after they graduate from North, under your leadership?
I think that, being able for our students to understand that life really isn't just about you, right? Like it's not about what can I get or how can I, achieve or be successful. It's how can you also get somebody else to get in that same way, right? Like it's one thing to achieve on your own, but like true leadership happens when you can see others around you be successful too, right? And so, a fulfillment for me is when I get those letters from former students, kind of, saying this is what I'm doing now, or thank you, I learned this, and now I'm here. That's the joy, right?
That completes the circle, right?
It does.
Yeah,
it does. So it's for our students, like, how can you be a positive contributor to society? Like, how can you leave a legacy?
Okay.
Right? How do you make an impact on somebody else? Right? Those are the things that, I think about every day, right? That when I drive into work, and I get my moment of being I'm still thankful for it. It's still a shock to me, right?
First principal position, right?
Like,
yeah.
You pull
you were
into
assistant principal.
I was assistant principal
Needham?
in Needham,
Yeah.
yep. And even then, like every role that I have is just like, wow.
Do you have your own parking space?
I do, right? So you pull in, parking spot number 1, and it's just like, man, this is for Keith Ford right here.
Yep.
And that's something I really, like, every day I pull in, I just think about that. Like, it's a very humbling place to be. And, having the staff, I'm working with some great people. And having them, work alongside me. And when you sit there in certain meetings and I might have an idea that I spew out, and seeing others kind of take it and run with it and, just have their own flavor to it, but it becomes even better than I even thought it could be. That's rewarding right there, to be a part of that. You think about Forrest Gump, life like a box of chocolate, you never know what you're gonna get. I think that part is true. Like, you just never know what cards are laid in front of you, but it's what do you do with them, right? And so I'm hoping that, the assignment that I've been given, that hopefully, I can leave that impact on others, that they'll be successful in their lives as well.
How's the building itself, the facility at North Quincy High? Are there any glaring needs, would you say, that you would like to see taken care of?
How much time do you have?
That's what I thought, yeah. Well, it is the older of the two high schools.
There are quite a few things that we need at this point, and we've been working with Superintendent Mulvey and the school committee to hopefully, have those needs met, see what happens on the priority list at this point. But we kind of have that Rocky mentality real quick that, it doesn't matter about, the facilities, that we're trying to get things done. But it would be great to have, some improvements sooner rather than later at this point.
All right. That'll all come out in the budget process, I am sure. Have you thought about your graduation speech yet?
It's funny. I was thinking about that maybe a week ago. I don't know what direction. The only thing about for this year is I'm still kind of getting to know the students right now, right? And so even though we've had a great year with the seniors right here, trying to build those relationships is brand new to me, right? And so being able to speak to them about their 4-year experience, even though I've been here for a year, that's going to be interesting on that. But you know, we'll have something ready to go. I'm sure they don't want to hear from me that much anyway, right? So something short and sweet, right? That'll get to the point. But more importantly for them, it's their day, and you know, they're going off to really adulthood and their career path and life and everything else. So it'll be an exciting time. I'm looking forward to that.
Anything else you'd like to share right now with folks?
No, I'm just again for the city of Quincy, just very humbled for electing somebody like me to be in this position. I received nothing but support everywhere I've gone in Quincy. You know, folks just coming up to me and just really saying how much they appreciate me being in this role. And that's good. You know, just being someone that's new to the city overall, you know, first time being a principal, you never know how that reaction is going to be. But, you know, folks have embraced me right from the very beginning. I'm appreciative of that. And, you know, like I told Superintendent Mulvey, and I believe this to be true in everything that I do, you know, I will be your best hire. Right, you know, like that's just the mindset that I have overall. That, you know, I'm gonna work extremely hard to make sure that, you know, and give my best effort in all that I do here.
We see you on the gridiron at Creedon Field.
Oh yeah.
Still have that passion.
Yeah. You know, I'm growing up, you know, with different sports now. It's you know, watching our sports teams compete. Have the same maximum effort, always compete. I love competition, right? You know, that's a big part of that, of my life, and you know, I just really love seeing Raider Nation get after it a little bit. So we're in the spring season at this point. You know, many of our sports are off to a strong start, and you know, we'll get out there and watch them run around a little bit and represent North in a positive way.
All right. Really appreciate the time to talk to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well.
And please consider it an open invitation here at QATV. We'd love to have you or members of your staff back here at any time to talk to the community.
That's great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you for watching AM Quincy. I'm Joe Catalano. Please join us again next time.